What's up, you guys? It is K-Swan with Road Rash Off Road, and on this episode we're going to be doing a really easy upgrade to the Road Rash Jeep, but it's going to be a little time consuming just because I want it to be perfect and I want it to look great also. So bear with me and we're going to dive into this project today. Here we go. Now today we're going to be unboxing and opening up a new set of flat fenders. We're going to be talking about why you would want to install flat fenders on your rig, but then also what are the benefits and what you're looking for whenever you're looking for a flat fender. Now for me, obviously I have a set of flat fenders already, so why would I want to re-upgrade from these flat fenders to my new flat fenders? Let me just tell you why. Now, when I bought these flat fenders, I didn't really know what I was looking for. I bought them off of Amazon. The Road Rash Jeep was still undergoing a lot of transformation. In fact, I believe I had just installed my 3.5-inch lift, and I was just about to upgrade to a 35-inch tire. So I needed that additional clearance between the tire and the fender. Now, my original OEM fenders were white. This is the Oscar Mike version of the Jeep, and so they came with matching white fenders, and I loved that look. So when I got these fenders, I immediately took them in and painted them white to match the Jeep. This wasn't a big deal because I wasn't really having to paint match too much. I was painting a white fender for a white Jeep, and any touch-ups that I needed to do throughout the year would have been easy to do because I still had the leftover white paint. So I was super happy with how it turned out and how they held up over the last few years. So with my new flat fenders by Hooke Road, we're going to follow that same procedure. We're going to unbox them. I believe they're powder coated black right now. And then we're going to prep them and get them ready to install on the Jeep. We're going to paint them white and get them to match the Road Rash Jeep. Now, as I've continued to build out the Road Rash Jeep into a full overlander, I have found some shortcomings with my current flat fenders that I didn't identify when I first bought these. That's why we're going to now beef these up with a new structure of a tube style flat fender, and I'll show you why. If you're like me, you find yourself crawling all over the Jeep, setting up tents, setting up things on top of the Jeep, so I'm always climbing all over this thing, using my tire, and then sometimes even having to get extra elevation on my fenders. Without the tube fenders, the structure of this is very, very shoddy. If I stand here, you can see they start to bend down. So I need that extra structure to be able to hold the weight of me standing on the Jeep. Now, what we're going to be unboxing and opening up today is the brand new tube fenders by Hooke Road. Let's see what comes in the box. In the box, we have some stickers, installation guide. Should be pretty straightforward. Here we have all of our mounting hardware. Which comes with our screws, our nuts, and then even some rivets to install into the body of the Jeep if we need so. And then we have the 4 fenders themselves, 2 in the back, 2 in the front. These are steel plated. They do have a texture to them, but I'm going to show you how we're going to paint these, and they're going to look super, super nice. This is going to add a lot of structure to the Jeep. let's get these things prepped for paint. Now the last time I did a paint project on my flat fenders, it worked out fantastic. I ended up using just a spray can like this of Rust-Oleum, white Rust-Oleum, and I probably put about 16 coats of paint on the flat fenders, and it lasted well over a year and a half, almost 2 years. Occasionally when I got back from a really harsh overlanding or rock crawling trip to Windrock or Gulches or something like that, I'd have to go back and maybe touch up some of the corners, but it's white, it's not hard to paint match. Now, if it was a green Jeep or an orange Jeep, I probably would not take this procedure, but it's white. It's not really that difficult to paint match the white. This time, I'm going to do it just a little bit different. I went to Tractor Supply and I bought this farm grade, tractor grade Rust-Oleum that is almost like a primer, a white primer. And I'm going to do probably 3 or 4 coats of this, applying it with the brush. That way I can get all in here and it should be really even. And then once that dries, I'm going to go back with my paint, my spray, and I'm going to spray kind of an even coat, maybe 2 or 3 over top of it, just to make it really smooth and really consistent. So let's go ahead, clean these flat fenders up a little bit, get them ready for our first coat of primer. I think this tractor grade, farm grade primer is going to do really well at adhering to this steel and protecting the coat on this. First coat complete. We're going to let that dry for a second. Probably put another second and a third coat of the paint, and then we'll be ready to spray it. So yesterday we did 3 coats of the tractor grade primer on the fenders, and they look fantastic. Man, they look so good. I'm super pleased with how these are coming out. There's just a few spots like here that would benefit in me hitting it with some spray. So I'm just going to do probably 1 or 2 coats of spray on these, and then we'll be ready to install them. Okay, so while the fenders are drying from the spray, I can go ahead and start prepping the Jeep by removing my current fenders off of the Jeep. We're going to do a little bit of cleaning just to make sure that the Jeep is ready to accept the new fenders. So there's several reasons why you would want to change your fenders. One, and most importantly, is probably clearance. Once you go to a 35 or 37-inch tire, you're going to need a lot more clearance between the tire and the fender. Once you disconnect the sway bars, you go off-road, or you are rock crawling or something like that, that articulation in that wheel is going to start rubbing the OEM fenders. That's one reason why you would want to go to a flat fender, to kind of gain almost 3.5 inches between what your normal clearance would be. Second reason would be just for looks. It looks so much more aggressive and so much more beefy when you have flat fenders versus the stock OEM fenders. And then third is the structure and the stability. I showed you yesterday how I was standing on the side of the fender and it started bending in. A lot of times I'm climbing all over my Jeep trying to get things fixed up there, but these flat fenders that I have and the OEM plastic ones will not hold the weight of someone like me. So that's why I've decided now to go to a tube style fender that would be more structurally sound to hold the weight of me and to protect the Jeep when we are off-roading. I've got several cases in which I was off-roading in Windrock or Gulches, and the Jeep was literally sitting on its side with a wall here, and it practically ripped off the bead on the side of the fender. The fender really didn't do anything to kind of protect the Jeep itself. So I think with these new fenders that we have, the tube style fenders, they're going to be much more suited to actually protect the Jeep itself. Let's see what we need to do to get these fenders removed from the Jeep. So obviously I have aftermarket fenders on here already, but if you are one of those who still have their OEM stock fenders, what you would do is you'd have this big plastic piece here and then another plastic piece in here protecting all of this. There's 4 bolts here, 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 and here. And then there's one arm that kind of comes out right here to give it a little bit of structure. You're going to want to remove those 4 bolts, and I think there's 1 bolt on this little metal arm coming out. Once you remove those, the plastic fender that's on here is just held on by clips. You can grab it and yank it. It's going to make this really bad, ugly, cracking sound, but it's okay because you're removing it. You're going to put something else more beefy in place. You just take it, you grab it, and the whole thing comes out in one piece. Now, in my case, I've already put on a set of flat fenders, which means for me, this is not going to come out. My inner fender is going to stay, but I've got these bolts here that we're going to remove. Some of them will be pretty simple to get out, but I have put these things through some hell over the last probably 1.5 or 2 years. So I'm assuming I'm going to get some trouble on some of these and removing them. Cross my fingers I don't, but not really that hopeful. Let's get our wrench and start removing some of these fenders. So this takes a 13. There's a 13 nut back here, and a 13 in the front. So far, they're all coming out just fine. So these 2 right here, I could possibly remove this. This one I could probably reach in here just like this. But this one here, if I don't want to take this off, I can actually reach in through the engine bay here and get that out. The last one is here, and it's kind of stuck in a not too awkward place, but a little finagling. And now we're loose. We're going to want to take some time, clean this up here. You can tell this thing's been off-road. We're going to clean this up a little bit, wash the whole Jeep, prep the new ones to reinstall. Let's go ahead and take the back ones off too. So, to be honest, the back ones I'm a little bit nervous about. Some of these have nuts on the back, not a big deal. But some of these, I actually had to drill a hole and create a rib nut in here. So I'm a little concerned that these rib nuts are going to be loose in here, and then the screw's not going to want to come out. So far, so good. All these here have rib nuts in them. This one. And in the back, there's only 3. Oh, no, this one's got a rib nut in it also. Two. This one and this one both use a wrench. The back came off pretty easy. So far, so good. We'll go ahead and take off passenger side and get ready. All right, so I'm super impressed about how easy those came off. I didn't even have an issue with not even one of them. I thought for sure that some of my nuts would be froze up or some of my rib nuts would be loose in there and kind of twisting, but they all came off easy. So I'm gonna spend a little bit of time, wash the whole Jeep. You see it's dirty here, but really kind of get into this area here, clean up all of this. Make sure that all these little rib nuts here that I have placed in here, they're all tight for the new application. But real quick, I want to show you the difference between my old flat fenders and what we're installing on the new flat fenders. So here's the old flat fenders here. You can tell just a lot of abuse that I took on the roads, and here's where, you know, the bead literally was just coming off the side from rubbing on a rock somewhere. And I want to just do a comparison to what we're about to install on here. Now here's the two side by side. My current really thin ones, and then this is the tube version. And you can just see how beefy and how structured that is compared to this one. Let's go ahead and wash the Jeep and get it ready to put the new fenders on. Look at that. I got the majority of it off. Now I did notice here there is a rib nut that's missing right here, so I'm gonna have to see about replacing that. There's another rib nut here that looks like it kind of got pulled out, so I'll see about replacing that. And the only thing else is, cross my fingers, I'm hoping that these holes all line up to the new fenders. They're both Hooke Road, the old ones and the new ones, so I'm hoping that those holes will line up just right. All right, so we got it all cleaned up. I'm really hoping that these holes are going to match up. There's no repairs that I see that we need to do on the front parts, so let's just start with the front, see if we can match up these holes, and see how easy this project's going to be from this point on. Let's just see if we can throw one screw in there just to hold it in place. All right, well, so far it looks like all the holes are matching up. We're just going to hand tighten that down right now just to kind of hold it in place so we can kind of put everything in, and then we'll be able to tighten everything down. All right, we got the first one screwed on. It was kind of a pain in the butt, only because I couldn't get the drill in there because of the tube there, so I had to do everything by hand. And man, my fingers are about wore out. 3 more to go. So based on the other one, I think it's probably going to be easier to plant this screw first and then maybe one of these over here instead of starting in the middle. This was a little difficult to get in down here. All right, the fronts are done. It doesn't look like it's a perfect fit. I gotta clean up my fingerprints, but you can see like the little gap that's in there. It's not a perfect, excellent fit, but I think it's gonna do well for what we need. Let's move on to the back. And one thing I do wanna note about the back is we gotta look at these rib nuts here. It looks like on this side, the driver's side, they're all still in place, but the passenger side, we have a couple that's missing, and so we need to go and fix those. Now, Hooke Road does include kind of a little rib nut installer. It is not the best. In fact, it doesn't even work. It's one of these little wrench on pieces where you kind of stick this in, wrench it on. This thing is horrible. It does not work, but I got to give it to Hooke Road for attempting. You're going to want to buy an actual riv nut gun like this. This is the only way you're going to be able to get these in here and secure tightly. I'm going to go ahead and replace this one and this one here, and we'll be ready to install. So the majority of the rears are going to be with rib nuts. You've got two here in the middle that are going to use an actual nut washer on the back. We're going to go ahead and just place this into place using, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of hand tighten this one in so we can hold it. And then over here, we can put this one at the bottom. Just like that. And we're gonna just kind of hand tighten a lot of these in. And then we'll be able to actually wrench them down. All right, so the back ones are becoming a bit of a pain in the butt. Hard to reach places, but then also the holes don't line up exactly. So I'm having to force them in. In fact, on the passenger side, I was only able to get 3 of the 7 bolts bolted into the Jeep. So I bolted 2 here and then 1 back here, and tried to really kind of land one right here in the middle, but couldn't quite line up those holes. So I'm going to see if the driver's side is a little bit easier than the passenger side. That's a pain in the butt. At least it started, and it looks like I'm gonna have the same issue with this side. That hole lines up, this one lines up. I've got one more hole right here that lines up, but these 2 upper holes, I can't get them. We're finally done with the install of the new Hooke Road tube flat fenders. We spent a little bit of time dressing them up, painting them, matching the Jeep. They look great as far as that goes. The quality of these, it's definitely a lot more structure than what I had in my previous flat fenders. This is going to protect the Jeep an awful lot. Now I do have to say, the fronts went on perfect. All the holes lined up and they just went on super fast. Now the rears, I could still only get 3 nuts into the holes. The holes just didn't line up in the rear. The fit on these are not perfect, but I think they're going to be a lot better than what I had originally, and they're going to protect the Jeep a lot. I want to thank Hooke Road for sending me these to test out on the Jeep. These look great, they're aggressive, and I like the way that they add a little bit more width here to cover up these big 13.5-inch tires. So thank you, Hooke Road. You guys like and subscribe. If you have any questions about the install of this, make sure you put them down in the DMs down below, and then like and subscribe. We do a lot of overlanding and rock crawling videos, not just DIY. So like and subscribe to the channel, follow Road Rash. See you guys on the next video. Peace!